What a wonderful evening. What a wonderful crowd. Appreciate your coming out on a Thursday night with the traffic and other things to be here with us tonight. We're very excited about this program. My name is Hoda Mahmoudi. I am the holder of the Baha'i Chair for World Peace. We are gladly located in the College of Behavioral and Social Sciences at this university, and we have been in that college for now over 30 years. Before I introduce our distinguished speaker, Dr. Kaplan, there are some special guests in the audience whom I would like to acknowledge, and I would like to ask them to please stand so that others know who you are, if you don't mind. From the Dean's Office at the College of Behavioral and Social Sciences, Associate Dean Meredith Claycamp. Also, there are some individuals with us tonight who are here as they are every year during our annual lecture. They are the advisory board members to the Baha'i Chair, and tomorrow they will be in meetings with me all day, and I'm looking forward to that. This year there are some who couldn't make it and will join us tomorrow virtually, but those who are here, I would please like them to stand when I call their name and be recognized. The first one is Dr. Rabi Musa, who is the liaison to the board, but a member of the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States. Also from the board, Mr. Douglas Hank, if you would please stand. Thank you. Ms. Mojgan Laghai, and Mr. Michael Zhang. Also, I have to recognize some of my very special guests. Ms. Mehrangiz Kar, in the way back. If you would please stand. You need to know about this brave woman. She is an Iranian human rights lawyer who has done amazing work in the area of human rights and minorities in Iran. She is an internationally recognized writer, speaker, and activist. Thank you for being here tonight. Also in the back are two very dear friends of the Baha'i Chair, Mr. Hossein Ejtemai and Ms. Giti Ejtemai. If you would please stand. Now, I also must thank another individual without whom evenings like this would not come together. Her name is Dr. Kate Seaman. Dr. Seaman, please stand. She's in the way back. She is the assistant director at the Baha'i Chair, and I have to tell you, she is indispensable in her role and the work that she does for the chair. She supports our research, she coordinates our activities, and she, in her own right and expertise, helps us with issues about peace and conflict, because this is an area in which she has her PhD. Thank you, Kate, for your tireless efforts and for making an evening like this possible. Finally, I would like to also thank, there are 4 lovely students in the back. They're called the BSOS ambassadors. BSOS stands for the College of Behavioral and Social Sciences. And these students volunteer their time and help us at events like this. So I'm going to read their names and they will stand. Emma Bain, Sasha Gare, Alisa Davies, Elena Brandolini. Thank you. Now, before I introduce our distinguished speaker, I would like to invite to the podium Dr. Rabbi Musa, who is a member, as I said, of the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States, which has had a long-standing relationship with the University of Maryland, and she's also the liaison member of our board of directors. Please.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me? Yes. All right. It's wonderful to be here with you this evening. The National Spiritual Assembly is honored to celebrate a collaboration of over 30 years with the Baha'i Chair for World Peace here at the University of Maryland. From the very beginning, the university has shown a rare openness to exploring world peace from a holistic perspective, embracing not only scholarship and research, but also moral, spiritual, and cultural dimensions of human life. This spirit of openness has allowed the chair to thrive, uniting rigorous inquiry on the one hand with a vision of peace that is inclusive, practical, and transformative. We all, including the National Spiritual Assembly of the Baha'is of the United States, are very, very grateful for Dr. Hoda Mahmoudi's vision and leadership, which continue to translate principles into action and ideals into solutions. And so tonight we are very pleased to continue and to renew our commitment by presenting, through Dean Susan Rivera of the College of Behavioral and Social Sciences, a gift of $320,000 that will support the chair's work. Now, unfortunately, Dean Rivera could not be with us this evening, and so we are asking Dean Meredith Claycamp to kindly accept this gift on our behalf. Maybe you should come to that side so they can see. Wonderful. So thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
It's a joy to be here with you this evening for this annual lecture, and we look very, very much forward to continuing this shared journey in the years ahead. So thank you very, very much. It's lovely to be here.
Okay, so, and of course you will thank the National Spiritual Assembly on our behalf, Dr. Musa. Thank you. So each year during the fall semester, the Baha'i Chair holds an annual lecture, bringing to campus a distinguished scholar whose work we find not only timely, but relevant to the challenges that we face today, and whose research offers constructive solutions. This year, we are honored to welcome Dr. Seth Kaplan. Dr. Kaplan is one of the world's leading experts on fragile states and societies. He teaches at the Paul H. Nitze School of Advanced International Studies at Johns Hopkins University, serves as senior advisor to the Institute for Integrated Transitions, and has worked with the World Bank, the U.S. State Department, U.S. Agency for International Development, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, as well as governments and NGOs around the world. He is the author of a number of very interesting books, and ones that are, I think, still so useful as we see what is happening not only around the world, but in our nation. Of course, the one that he'll talk about tonight is Fragile Neighborhoods, Repairing American Society, One Zip Code at a Time. His other book is Human Rights in Thick and Thin Societies, Universality Without Uniformity. Another book, Betrayed, Promoting Inclusive Development in Fragile States. And finally, Fixing Fragile States, a new paradigm for development. His earlier work on fragile states has been especially influential, showing how social cohesion breaks down and what can be done to restore resilience and stability. His most recent book, Fragile Neighborhoods, turns that expertise inward, offering a powerful and urgent reflection on the fragmentation within American society and how we can rebuild trust, cooperation, and belonging at the neighborhood level. We are truly honored to have him with us tonight, and we look forward to the insights he will share. So please join me in extending a very warm welcome to Dr. Seth Kaplan.
So let's make sure this works. Okay. Well, thank you very much. This is a great turnout, and thank you so much for our hosts. And I am going to do what I like to do and get rid of that and stand up here where we can be a little bit more intimate. And so I'm going to share with you what I consider the most important internal problem in the United States. And I will just tell you, to write a book is really painful. And so you have to really think this is an important issue for you wanting to spend many years on it. So this is, I mean, there's a history why I focused on, you want me to do this. My voice is really loud. I'm sure I can scream. Where do you,
For the online one.
there you go. Let's do it properly.
Apologies for the interruption.
That's okay. Well, the commercial break is over. Okay. All right. So again, so the point is, to write a book, you have to be really motivated. And so for me, this was the issue that stares at my face for many years. And therefore, I had the motivation to go through, let's say, the suffering to get to the other side and write the book. And I think what's unique, I'm not sure it came out very well there, but what's unique about what I will do is I am not here to lament our woes. I'm not here to analyze what's wrong. I'm here to do two things. One is, again, my day job is I work on conflict prevention, and therefore what I have tried to do in my book, and I'll give you a little taste of it here, is practical ways forward, because my job is to be practical and come up with ideas that everyone can contribute to. And I'd say the unique angle here is mostly when we think about what's wrong, we're looking at the politics, we're looking at the policy, I'm looking at the place. And I'm taking a very place-based lens, and I'll explain that. So just a little background. So my day job is fragile states. That's still 50% of my time. I'm spending today talking about Nigeria, a country I once lived in, but I do work in it now for several years. I work on Libya. I'm probably the next country I'll go to that most of you have never been to is Uzbekistan sometime in the next couple of months. Been there only once before. And so that's an example of the places I've traveled to. This is an example of the work I've done over the last 15 years. That's my first book. That's the most important report on conflict prevention in the last 15 years, UN World Bank, the one and only joint report they ever did. And that's an organization I co-manage. And basically, I've worked on a lot of countries, and what's been unique about my work in these countries is, again, I started by wandering country to country. I was the backpacker who lived in Nigeria at 21, who was in Japan by within a year later, and eventually just traveled, and I pivoted to this work. And what I thought was the missing piece that nobody focused on, because mostly the experts, they go to school, nothing against the university, they get trained, and they're looking for answers, but they don't focus on what goes on in society. And so what is unique about my work over all these years is that I am always looking at the social dynamics of countries and how that affects political and economic outcomes. And so what is unique about fragile states? I don't want to give, we're going to focus on fragile neighborhoods, but in one slide, these are some of the problems of fragile states. I'm not dwelling on it, but the key thing to think about is divided, weak institutions. Again, a lot of these are about relationships, and if we don't address the relational problems, fragile states can never become non-fragile, basically. And so why did I write this book? I wrote this book, well, roughly 10 years ago now. It's hard to believe how the years pass. People would ask me, without actually me raising the issue, I'm in Washington, I have a cup of coffee. You're Mr. Fragile States, and that's what I was known for. People would ask me, is the US becoming a fragile state? And when that happened once or twice, I thought, okay. I mean, it's partly in jest, it's partly anxiety, and I've just been to Somalia, I've just been to Sri Lanka, which had a war for 25 years. Somalia hasn't had a government in 34 years. I am sorry, it is a little bit of a different problem that you have than some of these countries. However, when you got asked that 7 or 8 times, I said, I need to take a step back and think about this. So I did what I always do. I read a lot of books. I wandered a lot. I like to wander and figure things out. I met a lot of people, asked a lot of questions. And what I discovered is there's a lot of people asking what's wrong, but there's not a lot of people offering what do we do about it. And again, we see problems in the news. We're always thinking the solution will be something in the news, and I don't think so. Again, this is a sample of the books. I mean, Bowling Alone is very well known. If you're, I think that's probably the most well known. I would say of all the books up here, my favorite probably would be Dignity. What a beautiful book about the back end of America. We live in the front end, and that is a wonderful book about the back end. But the point is, you got Robert Putnam talking about this for 25 years already. Bowling Alone comes out around 2001. And the thing is, if you're me and I'm looking at the problems, I'm thinking there's something, we always have to think relational. Now, we as a country, a lot of things actually are much better than 50 years ago. Think of all the material improvements in life. 50 years ago, a lot of people didn't have plumbing. Just think about that. When the New Deal, one of the famous pictures of the New Deal, which is a little more than 50 years ago, is LBJ going to West Virginia and seeing the living conditions. I do not remember that, just so you know that, but I've seen the picture. I don't go back that far, but I would just say that the material improvements are astounding. The gadgets are astounding. And we could go on and on with, there are improvements in many ways of our lives, but the social problems have grown and grown. And you hear the headline loneliness, but the mistrust, the deaths of despair, if you know what that means, people dying from drugs and alcohol and suicides, like literally hundreds of thousands of people. And then, of course, we hear the politics. And you could go on and on, the mental health problems of many youth. And all of these things are suggesting that something has changed in our relationships, because the Constitution hasn't changed. The laws mostly haven't changed. Some policies have changed, but the structure of how the system works hasn't changed. But all these social problems are going through the roof. And I'm Mr. Relationship, so this is what I looked at. And for me, I didn't know where I would end, because I mostly think of the problems of relationships between parts of a society. But I started just with a group on social capital, and we worked at it for many years. David Brooks was part of my group, Yuval Levin, Bill Galston. Again, I'm in Washington. You have the benefit of geography there. And people would just come together, and we would meet for several years. And again, I'm curious, and I keep asking this question, what has changed? And by listening to people and traveling, The big change is not national. The news is national. The big change is in our neighborhoods. Because we have, if anything, more national organizations, more people fighting to make the country better nationally. What we have is a complete collapse of local institutions, local relationships. And this is what we used to have. In fact, if you look at human history, this is all of human history until 2 generations ago, place-based community. Your houses of worship, your churches, your associations, your networks, your shopping, everything was local. And now today, we are a society of networks. And this is more dynamic. If you got the brains and you get into the right network or right institutions, this is very good for you because the networks will carry you upward. But if you live in a place with the wrong networks, or you don't have access to any networks, or if you're like me, and one reason why I understand these things, because if I go a room with strangers, I'm that guy in the corner that's afraid to talk to anybody. So I'm really familiar with how social networks affect people's lives. And so this is a really dynamic, and it's been wonderful on many levels, but it's left a lot more people and places behind than this. And that is the dramatic change in our society. End result is we have a lot more anxiety and mistrust. You see this very simple slide, less time with each other, more mistrust. You see the health, again, this is COVID, but it's gone up. But the key number here is start in 1980, and there's a divergence between the United States and comparable countries. So all the technology and all the changes have had a much more devastating impact on the health of an average American. Yes, if you're in the right neighborhoods and you have the right access to whatever you need, your health is as good as anyone in the world, but that's not representative. We have this crisis of, this is from the Surgeon General, crisis of loneliness. And what I want to tell you is that place matters tremendously for this. So for me, place is neighborhood. Just look at the lifespan. In the average lifespan in America, there is a 41-year gap between the max and the minimal. In terms of neighborhood, a more typical difference is about 20 years. I can literally go to 2 neighborhoods in DC, 2 neighborhoods in Baltimore. I don't think College Park has that many neighborhoods, but you can find a 20-year gap within a mile or 2 miles of each other, just in lifespan. You can walk the streets of those 2 neighborhoods. Baltimore is a great example. Baltimore has some beautiful neighborhoods, and there's a lot of neighborhoods that are not doing very well. It's a very neighborhood-based city, and the gaps are enormous. This came out after my book, but this is from someone named Jack Shonkoff at Harvard, best center, as far as I know, on the developing child. And this gives you a really good idea what it means for individuals to thrive in life. We often debate the policy, which is the outer ring, but the inner ring matters the most. What goes on in the household, what goes on in the street, what goes on in the neighborhood. The built environment matters, the green, the housing, other things, but it's actually the relationships that matter most. This is what's called the neighborhood effect. Famous Harvard sociologist coined this term, I think, around 1979. This is the most famous current person on social mobility, also at Harvard. Harvard does not have a monopoly, but this field happens to have mostly Harvard people. So ever see those maps on social mobility? This is the place, Opportunity Insights. But I do want to tell you that when I talk about social poverty, we have material poverty, we have social poverty. They are not the same. You could be wealthy and you could be socially isolated, impoverished, at risk of many things you would not be otherwise. And that will be an increasing problem as our society ages, even though you don't have to be old to have that challenge or older to have that challenge. The key thing is, you also can be poor and be in a socially rich place that will uplift you. But the point is, social poverty affects everybody, or potentially affects everybody. This is a quote from Naomi Schaefer Raleigh from one of the Washington think tanks. And I think what it says is that we are afraid to expose our vulnerability. We think we're so busy, we're afraid to seem that we have a need. We tend not to reach out to people. End result is you have your wallet and you have your apps. And if you need help, that is it. And that may work 80% of the time. Trust me, there will be times that won't work. And so neighborhoods have a huge impact on society and individual well-being. Many of our social ills are downstream from neighborhoods. We all live in a place, and yet we have built a placeless society that isolates, atomizes, and increases our risk, our vulnerability. The physical is obvious because literally we built a lot of our landscape where you live in an island. Your island is your house. There's no reason for you to know anybody around you. Kids don't walk to school. You don't go shopping locally. If you pray, you don't pray locally. Everything about your life that used to be local, you're doing it virtually, or in many cases, you're driving places. We do drive to a lot of places. The point is, the physical landscape is not designed to help people know each other as it used to be. But our institutions are the same. Kids don't walk to school, they drive to school. And there's, for example, not that there aren't reasons to do that, but each of these choices had reasons, but the thought that it might impact the social fabric was never taken into account. And you add up 1,000 choices like that, and you have a much weaker social fabric. So what can we do about it? Well, ultimately, we want to restore some version of this. I'm not saying this is easy or something that we can do in the short term, but to the extent that every neighborhood has its own institutions, its own places to gather, you begin to restore the social fabric. These are the types of institutions that you can have in a neighborhood. My neighborhood has, I think, all of these. Small businesses, houses of worship, kids go to local schools, we have civic associations, maybe not political per se, because Silver Spring or Montgomery County is huge, and I don't know what's below it in terms of government. And there are literally many families. I have a neighbor that has 6 different houses of his family in the neighborhood. He's got his brother, another brother, I can't even count it, his mother-in-law, I don't know, but I asked him and he said 6. And somehow I had another neighbor that used to have 8, but a few of that people left. So you can imagine that all these things local, people know each other. People are there for each other. I'm thinking of the woman who's down the street from me, who nobody notices. I notice her, who organizes the park cleanup, knocks on doors of people who live alone. I know that because one of my neighbors lives alone. Always on doing stuff for nonprofits. I'm thinking of the person across the street who has some sort of small charity, like a foundation that does things for people in the neighborhood. The neighbor next door, which is one of the 6 houses I just mentioned, doing fundraising. Both him and his wife do fundraisings. It's amazing when you're in a socially rich neighborhood, everybody is doing something. People I would never imagine, they just showing up every day and they're doing something, and everything is, there's no center, there's no one directing it. It's in the water after a while. And again, the physical landscape matters. And if we worry about things like polarization, I don't think the answer is up there. I think the answer is close to home. And it's something that each of us can play a role doing it. Now, I'm going to give you one example from my book. What I did was, what I always like to do is I look at things that work, and then I look at several things that work, and I take lessons. It's basically what I learned doing comparative politics. You look at a series of countries and you learn what you can by looking at comparing the countries. Here I looked at a series of organizations doing what we might consider the 5 most important ways to improve relationships in a neighborhood. I looked at family, interfamily, community, school, and physical landscape. So this is a great organization from Detroit. Chris Lambert here, Life Remodeled. Originally, they were doing the largest volunteer initiative in Detroit. 10,000 people would come together for 6 days every year to clean up the city. I think Detroit population dropped by 60%. If you ever driven around Detroit, got a lot of neighborhoods that have been abandoned housing. So they cleaned up blight, they beautified streets, and they helped fix up houses. Did this for many years. Ultimately, the goal was, and I think this is really well said, that if you want people to bond or to bridge and to overcome differences, you don't ask them to overcome their differences. You ask them to work together on something. So he originally had the vision of bringing people together. What he realized by hard experience was the only way you're going to bring people together is over a practical project that they do together. And just think about how many efforts are in our country to bridge, but they're mostly not around practical things we do together in place, which is, for me, a great missed opportunity if anyone is a big funder out there. And so eventually he got called in by the school district. They were doing work to help renovate some schools. And then lo and behold, if you're gonna go around Detroit, there's a lot of empty buildings there in decay. They had a beautiful Gothic 1920s middle school that they could not afford to upkeep anymore. They were consolidating schools. The middle school went to the high school. They didn't know what to do about it. They didn't want to lose the building. They offered it to him on a long-term lease and turned it into an opportunity hub. Great idea. He was doing work in a lot of neighborhoods. Here he can go deeper on a neighborhood and make a bigger difference. He thought it was great, but what happened? The neighborhood was angry with him. Again, he's a white guy, black neighborhood. He had been giving things to people, like I'll help you help your house. Here he was moving into the neighborhood and taking over the most beautiful asset, beautiful building that they had in the neighborhood. People did not trust him. People were angry with him. People came to the meeting and were basically screaming at him. He was literally getting hazed. I'm not sure that's the right word, but there was anger. And so the thing was, just because there was good intentions and just because maybe the problem is the whole process was wrong. And this is Dwan Dandridge, who doesn't work there anymore, but worked there at the time. And so he understood, and he was interpreted to Chris. And the point was, you just can't walk into the neighborhood. They don't know who you are. They're not going to trust you. You don't understand them. And I think this is a very good quote. That, again, he shows up. Nobody asked him to come. So basically, they had to learn. Chris is a really good guy. He's a person who, and I would say more of us always need to be empathetic, open, and learn from our mistakes. It's so important to learn from our mistakes. So he incrementally learned how to build trust. What did he do to build trust? He went around and broke bread with people. He forgot the big meetings. Big meetings are not the best way to maybe develop trust, and the people who are angry are the ones who dominate the meeting. Went street by street talking to people. He said, we're gonna change who works for us. We're gonna hire people from the neighborhood. So he changed the staff. He broke bread. He eventually went around and met people and found some people who had been there a long time and formed 2 advisory boards. And then he basically gave the neighborhood the chance to name the place. The neighborhood told him what he should focus on in the place. The point was, he did all these things to turn the whole model around, that basically was the neighborhood leading the model, and he was serving the neighborhood. And he was doing it in a very incremental fashion so people would know who he was, and he was in partnership. And again, this is some of the things I've just mentioned, the staffing, did some small initiatives to build trust, gave real local leaders influence. The key thing is that when you do things, the who and the when matter more at the beginning than the what and the how. We spend all our time thinking of the what and the how. It's the who and the when. You gotta put the who first, the relationship first, and only when that's set does the time is right to move ahead. And then the what and the how actually matter. Too much of what we do, especially when we're dealing with places that are disadvantaged, it's all about the what and the how. It's not about the who and the when. So again, and then he basically says, we're going to hold ourselves accountable. And they basically took this, did this incredible, I think it's about $2 million. Don't quote me on the number. It's been some time since I did this research. But it has everything from a little library. It has places, it's an incredible building. And outside, it's an incredibly beautiful building because of its Gothic nature. Jobs, these are the 3 priorities the neighborhood decided upon. And I'll just leave this section with 2 data points. After they've been there for several years, this became, I think it's the lowest crime rate in the city of Detroit. And it was second highest on a survey. Not many cities have neighborhood-based surveys, but it has been neighborhood-based surveys in Detroit. And it had an incredible jump. So the point is, literally by doing this work, you can change the expectations the neighborhood has of itself, the collaboration the neighborhood has with each other. The collaboration leads to lots and lots of positive outcomes beyond what he was working on. And so the goal here is a flourishing society built on strong neighborhoods, flourishing neighborhoods, highly connected people. I'm just going to leave you with a couple of practical slides because we are here talking peace. I like to think that my work is building peace neighborhood by neighborhood. Again, a strong society is a prevention society. My day job is conflict prevention. So even if we don't have conflict the way I see it in many countries, a healthy society is a strong society in every neighborhood. And the simplest way to think about that is connectivity and the place unique institutions. Life Remodel was about building and then bringing in lots of institutions to a neighborhood. A neighborhood will thrive when it has a lot of place-unique institutions. If it's all housing, there's no institutions at all, and therefore there's likely not much connectivity. Again, this is some idea of bonding and bridging. These are all the factors that matter. And I'll just leave you with the who and the when. That's what I just said. Again, can you step up where you live? Can you be a steward? Can you join some association? If you're a religious person, I would say, what can you do to make your religion more a place-based, community-oriented? I find most religions today to be disconnected from community, from place, and not focused enough on community. And so these are just some ideas. And again, when we think of big problems, I definitely believe that the answer is lots of local solutions. And that is the only way to address that. There's no magic bullet. I would say we have to stop looking for the magic bullet and focus on what we can achieve. And if each of our places is better, the totality will be much better. Thank you very much. Thank you. Are we doing Q&A, or are you going to say the next few slides? Okay, thank you.
So this is time now for questions and answers. We have on either side people who will bring...
Twice in a row. 3, well, I think you have to do patterns of 3, so you have to do it one more time.
So raise your hand, and one of the volunteers will bring a microphone so everyone can hear your questions.
And we're here for you, so by all means, ask lots of questions. You can ask about anything.
Malik, could you raise your hand so they can see you? Yes.
Thanks for your talk.
Where are we? Oh, there you go, Malik. I remember from before, you're the king.
Yeah, thank you. So I wanted to ask you, what's the best response to, I'm thinking of the two University of Chicago professors who sort of critique zip code analysis, Heckman.
The Wall Street Journal article?
Yeah, the recent one.
Well, I would read, Raj Chetty and his people put an extensive, they did write a letter to the Journal, but they did write a much longer piece, and they just refuted the whole analysis. And honestly, I think the Raj Chetty work is incredible, but walk around your city and it stares at you in the face, and do you need to know more? I'm so sorry, but the difference in the quality of people's lives in their neighborhoods, again, I'm a traveler, so my foreign eyes, it is just shocking. And I'll just say, I would say upstream, this idea that we have class-based neighborhoods, that is one of the most unique things about the United States, is how class-based the neighborhoods are. Sorry.
What, can you tell us more about what this
Well,
issue...
he's saying there was a critique, and I'm glad that you read the Wall Street Journal. So about 2 weeks ago, maybe, there was two professors from Chicago, and again, Chicago is the free markets, it's the economics department, free market. They critiqued 10 years of research, basically, probably more, of Raj Chetty and his team, saying that their data was faulty, and that if you use different data, you'll get different answers. And then they immediately came up, I think it's the next day even, with a counter. And so it's the Journal, I don't think they're the first people to say that, the fact that it got published. So again, where I sit and where lots of people sit, Raj Chetty is like on a pedestal because he's put data to stuff that, I mean, it just stares at you, and there's literally people, I mean, I actually hold an annual conference on people working in neighborhoods, not only the inequality, it's also other aspects, and literally I can have 100 organizations come and everybody, so I just think the critique, again, I'm not the one looking at the numbers, but I do trust Raj Chetty is very good.
Other questions? Yes, over here. Right, hold up your hand, please, so they can see you.
Hold it up high, there you go, let them see you.
They're coming, they're getting there, yes, yes.
What's your name, please, ma'am?
Oh, my name is Yolande.
Yolande?
Yolande Pokam. I'm close, I grew up in Cameroon, so very close
So
to Nigeria.
Cameroon, Anglo part or French part?
French.
Okay, more in the south.
Yes.
Got
yes,
it.
yes.
I was in middle belt of Nigeria, which is not far from the Anglo part, not too long ago.
Awesome, awesome. So, two questions. One, I'm curious if I know there were a series of decisions that led to more fragile neighborhoods, but I'm curious if you've noticed a pattern in terms of decisions that kind of led to, our neighborhoods shifting away from place-based setting to like what it looks like now. And then second, when you talked about places of worship not being place-based or being more disconnected, I was curious what you meant by that.
Got it. Okay. So the first question is, part of the problem is that legacy of segregation, that some of the worst neighborhoods are originally, if you look at a map of Atlanta, for example, you see the north and to some extent the east is being prosperous, and the south and more towards the west is being the neighborhoods that are, and literally those who do, the point is without segregation, those that do well in the former segregated black neighborhoods, those that do well, they move to the good neighborhoods. And the legacy of segregation and then disinvestment just creates a vicious cycle. So there's no private capital coming in, and the people who do well, they're basically, society tells you you do well, you leave. And so, but it's not only there, you go to like Appalachia, which is 98% white, and you see even worse places than you can find in most urban America. And it's also, if you do well, you leave. So we almost as a society have concentrated our investment, private and public, and we have encouraged people with talent who get into those great institutions or do well to concentrate in neighborhoods. I mean, beyond that, obviously there's the fact that we have inequality, the fact that we have cars, the fact that all the technological changes there's a lot of things, but I would say segregation, government actions, the market economy just generally rewards winners and penalizes losers, and that happens for place as well. You can also think of the consolidation of so many of our institutions. Instead of lots of small companies, we have bigger companies. Instead of lots of small nonprofits, we have bigger nonprofits, and so on and so forth. I think all these trends work against, and I'd also say we spend billions, even $1 trillion a year trying to help people, but we do not spend almost any of that money to help places. So if you look at all the money on housing and welfare and food stamps, and literally it's about $1 trillion federally every year, it's all done in silos. So we're spending loads of money, and a lot of it's federally mandated, so cities are not so easy to move the money around. Atlanta is trying very hard right now because the mayor is very pro-neighborhoods. And so even efforts over many decades to uplift people in need, they solve the humanitarian crisis of being poor. They are incapable, at least I'm talking international language, they do not work in a way that promote development in these places because they work in silos and no one takes responsibility for the places. And then I think your second question is, think of what a commuter church is? A commuter church is everyone commutes to the church. As opposed to, again, think of mega churches. Think about that, just think of Catholicism. What is a parish system? You live in your parish, you go to your, so churches used to be, you can find even in poor neighborhoods today, churches that were there before, people used to walk to the church, the neighborhood has declined, people live in the suburbs, they come back to the church and they don't touch the neighborhood. And this is very common in the United States.
Okay, second row over here, and I'm keeping track of the others. Okay. And
We'll do as many as we can.
Yes.
So a lot of what the focus is.
You have to give us your name. I'm really sorry.
I'm Lauren. So what I'm curious about is the role of virtual communities and how they tie in with, of course, the focus is on physical neighborhoods, physical communities, and you make the point that very few people or fewer people know their neighbors. We're isolated, we're all alone in our houses. But I'm well aware of most of the people my age where our primary interaction is online. And many people my age feel very attached to their online communities.
Okay, online communities is an oxymoron.
Well,
It's a marketing thing. Facebook communities.
right.
So again, you could have community online, but 99% of the use of the word is a marketing ploy to basically play to your desire for community, if I may say so. Sorry to say so, but please go ahead with your question, Lauren.
Well, I think that's really a more interesting point that you're making here, the marketing of the online community. So much of the psychological expertise in our country is devoted towards the entertainment industry and these online communities. Do you think it's realistic to bring back an emphasis on physical, real-world communities when most people my age are so accustomed to online engagement that it's even more uncomfortable to have that in-person engagement?
Yeah, from my experience, and I've seen some examples, people in your generation are hungry for the human interaction because they sense it's lacking. The commercialization of relationships, and it's not just the internet, it's in many, many things, but of course it's gone to the extreme with the literally the online experience is commercialization of your relationships. People will be selling you your AI spouse soon and all that stuff. And at least you can always turn it off. But, sorry? So the point is, I would just say that there's a hunger for it, but the physical stuff has to be more engaging than in the past because of this competition. And we as a society, again, what happened organically in the past will only happen now if we are much more intentional. So we as individuals can solve our problems because we can be intentional. But we as a society have a collective action problem, is that no one's responsible for this. And again, very hard to do, but as Jonathan Haidt has shown, collective action, and I write, you can see my 4 articles on his Substack, and I answer your question in one of these articles. But the point is, here he has a practical plan to reduce the penetration of technology in society. We can do the same if we think about this problem on a larger scale. But I do know people are hungry for it.
Thank you. Over here, yes.
Good question. Happy to talk more later.
Thank you very much for an interesting presentation.
Your name is?
My name is Mabongi.
Mabongi, where are you from?
South Africa.
South Africa.
I am a Fulbright scholar here.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. I'm doing research on building sustainable cities. So I'm focusing on housing, and it's all about looking at how can we build cities that are resilient, cities that can stand any type of a shock. At all times when you talk about the shocks, we normally talk about the natural disasters. But there are these other shocks which are caused by urbanization. There's a lot. And from your presentation, and I'm trying to contextualize it to where I come from, you have spoken about the dynamics of countries. We have divided populations, the weak institutions. You know the South African background, where post-1994, it has been about rebuilding the country, addressing the imbalances of the past. And a lot has been done. There have been reforms that we are seeing, but what is happening? We are witnessing the increase in poverty, increase in inequality, increase in unemployment. And now, when you want to build these neighborhoods, you can invest billions of rands, but if the issues of poverty, our unemployment rate is sitting at plus or minus 32%.
Could you ask the question?
The question is, why are we having the neighborhoods that are collapsing, whereas there's been a lot of investments that have been made to make sure that the quality of life of the people is improved? Thank you.
So I don't know South Africa well enough on that level. I mean, obviously we know the 94 history, and it's considered, at least that transition, to consider to be a very big success story, even though I know there's challenges in more recent years. So I can't speak about South Africa, but when you say sustainability of cities and resilience of society, I think we are in an age, we have the technology challenge, we're going to have more geopolitical instability, globally as well as regionally. We're going to have more economic disruption. Within our country, we have more instability than we had for many decades. And I just think if we expect our societies and our cities to be resilient, the only way we're going to get there is by having strong social cohesion. And the only way you're going to do that is bottom up. So a city, typically I think of neighborhoods as being 5,000 to 6,000 people. So I don't know the size of Johannesburg or Cape Town or those size, but probably have 100, 200, whatever neighborhoods. I'm thinking Atlanta, 600,000, has is 101 neighborhoods. Is what they use. It's a little bit less than 6,000. So the point is, each of those need to be strong and resilient, and without that, our society is much more at risk. Spending has to be higher because it's not preventing problems. You have many more social woes. It affects politics. So I'm not sure I'm giving you a really clear answer, but I would ask you, when you use the word sustainable and city, you think of the strength or the resilience of every single neighborhood in the city. That is the lens that again, there's environmental, there's financial, but I'm focused on social resilience.
Thank you. Let's see. Let's come to this side. Right here, Max, could you just stand so they know? Yes. Dr. Grossman.
Thank you. Max Grossman. I'm wondering if you can help us to cut through some of the challenge of creating this vibrancy by pointing to specific institutions that you think either have the least barrier to introduction or the highest value. When you think about a neighborhood, what are the things that people can do, and where does it start, and how do they work together? Is this about farmers markets and little free libraries? Is this about churches and other religious institutions? What gives you the best outcome, and what is the least difficult to start with?
It's a great question. So I was pretty macro, so that's a really good question. So if you're thinking of yourself as an individual, and then we could talk a little bit about neighborhood, I think you basically have three things that any person can do. You can go out your front door and look the houses around you and find a way to meet your neighbors. Knock on a door, put a seat in my neighborhood. This is also at COVID. When COVID happened and we basically wouldn't go into each other's homes, loads of people put chairs in front of their house. I mean, it became the norm that you would just go and talk to people in front of their house. I can remember, come over, I'll come over. I literally would have a meeting in front of somebody's house. And so I would say one easy thing to do is just meet neighbors and try to develop some relationship with neighbors. We're talking not about the big problem about place-based inequality. That's a bigger picture thing. But the second thing you can do is find some local association and volunteer, or bring some organization into your neighborhood. A third thing you can do is find 2 or 3 other people and organize something. Could be a block party. It's a little more ambitious. I wouldn't do that alone unless you're very ambitious. Find a few people and collaborate. The thing is, collaboration is important. Institutions are important. Now, if I was thinking a little bit bigger picture, ensuring every neighborhood had a place where people could gather. So farmers market is, again, can it be done at the scale of neighborhoods? But you could do community garden, not so hard to do. You could have, again, if you were a city government and this mattered to you, you could certainly give neighborhoods more authority over their planning. You could give some money for block parties. You could do some money for community gardens. I've seen some city governments being very proactive. But I think the thing that is at least a relatively low-hanging fruit is finding a way to have places, or at least a place that people can gather and know each other. And again, if there's some place unique institutions, a local business, a church, a school, what role can they play? Can they open their doors? Can the libraries, which are not neighborhood-based, can they come in and come and show up one day a week and have what would happen if libraries, and I ask people who run libraries this, what would happen if the libraries had a reasonable catalog of books, not their big collection, a modest collection, and they took it every day of the week to a different neighborhood. And that would be available for 5 hours, and even better if somehow there was some coffee or whatever it might be you could buy. people would show up and they would know each other. Can you organize a class in your neighborhood? So again, the thing is, again, the inequality question is harder, but simply social connection, we need places to gather. We need reasons to gather. It's as old as there's been humanity, and we need to just do the muscle. I also think if someone has access, small micro grants. You have a bunch of neighbors, 5,000, but you have to have this many neighbors collaborate to do your event. Don't just give it to one, give it to 5. You want to form, here's 5,000. Those types of things, I find they work really well. Could be 50, could be 500, could be 5,000. You don't need more than that to, it gives people a reason and it helps them get started. Hopefully that helps.
Let's take a few more. There was another hand over here. Yes.
Hi, I'm Robin Burnett. You've spoken about the power of gathering places. Groups like Moms for Liberty, regardless of what you think of them, they've been super successful.
What was it called?
Moms for Liberty. They've been super
Liberty.
successful in organizing and gathering in school districts to transform and build those local groups. How do you build national consensus around this type of neighborhood building at the local level? What issue or topic do you think can be as motivating?
That's a really good question. I mean, if you look at the historically, civil society, we think of it as all these one-off organizations, but the U.S. civil society, from roughly the progressive era to, 64 is the peak, but it continues after that, was not national organizations. It was what I would call translocal organizations that had thousands of chapters, farmers or veterans, and they weren't political. They sometimes had some political purpose, but their main purpose wasn't necessarily political. They had a reason to organize. They were fraternal. They were cross-class, which is so interesting. And today, mostly the civil society is completely not across class. There are very few working class people that play a major role in civil society, yet they used to play an extremely important role in civil society. So the thing is, you're asking me what's the cause. I mean, the thing is, it's hard for me to guess the cause, but I certainly could think of parent groups to get your kids off technology, for example, to use the anxious generation model. I mean, when I write for Jonathan Haidt's blog, my argument is it's not the phone-based generation replaced the play-based generation. It's that the communities decayed, and therefore the playing stopped, and people got on their TVs, and the phones picked up on that opportunity. It didn't go from play to phones, and he missed a chapter, and he agrees with that if you pay attention to the blog or the Substack. And that to me is, you actually can't go back to play if you don't have community. So you could be organizing, but you also could be thinking of beautifying. The thing is, the environmental movement has been somewhat successful. I'm not sure about neighborhood as opposed to being place, which could be a larger. But you could think of something around environment. You could think of something around kids. You could think, the largest national organization on neighborhoods is Main Street, which again, it does involve some professionals, but it is 1,500 basically equivalent of chapters around the country trying to improve a Main Street. So those are some ideas. I'm hoping that people like you will have other ideas and you will start an organization and not just do a PhD or something like that, right? Yes.
What sort of, do you have any ideas around tangible things that you think would be meaningful sort of force multipliers?
I mean, again, in my neighborhood, they organized around everything. They didn't like the street light, so a bunch of people went and petitioned the government to change the way the street light works so they could cross the street easier. They think there ought to be whatever. I was talking to some people I discovered who are my neighbors. There was a stream, and they didn't like the fact. I happened to like the fact that you could go through the rocks, and it was challenging. Now they built a bridge. So it's become a little bit of was a construction site. But the point was, and no one's telling people to do that. They're just like the amount of, we don't realize, I mean, when de Tocqueville came to America, that's Civil Society 1.0. Putnam is what I call 2.0 because it's a different time period and it was much more urban society. But the point was, this country historically has had enormous social energy and so many people engaged. And the question is, what are the issues that will get people to stand up and to get them off their phones? But what would happen if there was some really smart, I don't know your age, we'll guess that you're 18, someone who was like that would say that we need to have more fun activities for my generation. I'm going to organize something and I'm going to set it as an example, and then I'm going to use my social media savvy, to recruit people to replicate it, or something like that. I mean, that's basically what we need. I mean, this is the type of society that we need to recreate. I think that's the only way to save us, to be honest.
Okay, I think we'll take maybe one more right here.
And I'm happy to grab some questions afterwards.
In the green, yes, Firuze. Yes, she's coming.
Thank you so much for your presentation.
Your name, sorry?
My name is Farinaz Firuze. Farinaz Firuze. I work in military public health as well as in Baha'i community building. And I wanted to ask you, how will you reach the everyday person with this conversation? Because I think it's an important conversation. I think this discourse needs to exist on the scrollers, in the scroller's lens, not just in the intellectual halls at your annual conference at this location. If you want us to move to action, we will, but how will you reach people who only see when they're tired and they've come home? Because we've seen how effective it is to change a society just using posts on social media and completely transform everything about a nation.
I mean, for me, the change has to be, let's say, a narrative change about how we think about things. So I have my plans, which I won't announce in front of everyone here. But again, I do think, the neighborhood is not only the logical unit, but it's also the unit that reaches everybody. You work at a city level, you're not reaching most people. You work at a neighborhood level, and you do all the neighborhoods. So the thing is, you're correct. We have to affect the policymakers, but we also, and city leaders and civic leaders, but ultimately we have to reach 330 million people. I agree with that. And we have to find ways to catalyze energy to help people improve their places. So the thing is, it's a lot of messaging. It's short videos, it's articles, it's practical ideas, and God willing, I will have opportunities to do a lot more of that. I'm not going to go into too many details. Thank you.
Dr. Kaplan, can we do one more?
I can do five more. It's up to you.
Right there.
I'll never say no to a question.
Keep your hand up. Yes, they're coming over.
When I lived in China, can you hear me?
What city?
Beijing.
Beijing. Shanghai has much better neighborhoods.
Well, what I'm curious about in China was I was there during the time leading up to the Tiananmen massacre.
1980s, yeah.
Yes, and in China, I noticed that their national governance is duplicated at the provincial levels, and also that there was a rich, spontaneous public events everywhere. There was a kind of a local culture. But I was wondering what you thought about how China all of a sudden had so much unity that there could be a massive national demonstration for democracy when there had been such suppression.
That's a bit off topic, but I would just say, first of all, it's led by students. It's not led by the whole population. It was very student-led. Again, maybe some other people participated. I mean, it happened in many cities. I don't think it just happened in Beijing, even though our image is Beijing, but it was very student-led. Again, you could also think of the '68 protests in France. And so this idea of students and student networks spreading ideas and leading to things, I mean, there's quite a few precedents of it. I mean, the 1980s in China was opening up, and to some extent, there was some encouragement of people maybe not to be democratic, but to have some freedom. It also happens to be that you had a premier that was much more open to the idea, who fell from grace. And so I think that, again, we should, if you live in that society, you need to know that, I mean, the Arab Spring in some sense is a similar tragedies. You cannot be fooled by the moment. If you're a student, I mean, it's very dangerous in an authoritarian society to think that moments of freedom are going to be sustained. Of course, there are times when it can lead to dramatic change, but that was a time when, I mean, again, there's a network effect. If you're talking about a network effect, study the year 1848. No internet, no telephones, and you had revolutions all over Europe. And that was a similar that was working class and middle class, and eventually the two divided. But the point was this idea that you have a network effect that you could call it a mimetic network effect that affects people's behaviors. It's human nature. It happens repeatedly in society. So in that case, it happened among the students. I don't think it was a large society-wide movement. Okay. So anyway,
I think we'll stop there if that's okay, but not to stop the conversations. And Dr. Kaplan will be here to answer other questions. I would like to now thank him on behalf of the Baha'i Chair.
You don't have to thank me, but thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
And I think we have learned from him that really what I like the most is when you said it's not the politics, it's the relationships. And I think that was the most important thing to keep in mind. I think ultimately, if I may just interject, that it's how we treat each other, it's how we respect and have some kind of camaraderie with one another in conversation, learning who the other person is, what they're about, what their interests are, rather than ritualistic gestures of dealing with one another. But thank you so much for that enlightening lecture. Appreciate it very much. And you will be happy to know that he will be, Dr. Kaplan will be at the table in the back where he will sign his book on fragile neighborhoods. I urge you to go back there. There are not too many copies, so that way you can also get to know him better and speak with him. I also wanted to thank you again for coming to this event on someone told me Thursday nights are the biggest nights of huge traffic in this area. So I really appreciate your coming out tonight. And I wanted to announce to you that there are some events coming up at the Baha'i Chair over the next several months that you might be interested in, and I'm going to put them up on the screen for you to look at. On October 16 and 17, we have a very comprehensive conference at the University of Maryland on eradicating anti-Black racism in the DMV. For those of you from out of town, DMV is Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. So this will be a very important conference. It will have a few national speakers, but it will be largely speakers who are doing fantastic research on this topic at the University of Maryland. The next event is on November 5th. It will be held at the Library of Congress, it's Madison building. It's called Multiculturalism and Building Peace, Lessons from 5 Nations. A very important gathering where we will have Azerbaijan, Bahrain, Costa Rica, Kenya, and the Netherlands, who will have their ambassadors come and speak to us about what they're doing in their countries to promote multiculturalism and building peace. By the way, these are all on our website under events, but I just want to bring them to your attention. Our other event in November is Global Climate Crisis, Seeking Environmental Justice and Climate Equality. This is a book that Dr. Kate Seaman and I edited and wrote an introduction, and we have a number of fantastic chapters that look at climate from around the world and different continents, and we feature 3 of the authors who contributed to this book, and I highly encourage you to join this. It's a virtual meeting, and again, that's on our website. And finally, in November, we have How Schools Make Race, Teaching Latinx Racialization in America. And we really hope that you will join us. Some of these are virtual, so you can watch them from your home. But again, go to our website and you will see all of these listed. Let's see, the other thing is I think we're going to have refreshments, which also will be in the room where you received your dinner. And of course, there'll be plenty of time for all of you to socialize and get to know one another in the spirit of what Dr. Kaplan said, and maybe even come up with ideas here for what each of us can do on a sidewalk in a neighborhood with some idea, or within library setting, or whatever this, it doesn't have to be complex, is what I took away from what he said, which is what I really liked. And so, again, in appreciation for all of you coming out this evening, and of course, again, to Dr. Kaplan for his presentation. Thank you very much for being here.